The classroom fell silent as Professor Velthar entered through the main door. His tall, thin frame moved gracefully across the room, and his large eyes scanned every student present. The Galactic Academy of Xenobiology was home to hundreds of species from across known space, and today every single student in the advanced class looked nervous. Doyen sat near the back, his notebook open and ready. He was one of only 3 humans in the entire academy, and after 6 months he still found the variety of alien species fascinating. To his left sat Taemin, a Vrexian whose insect-like features and compound eyes made him look intimidating, though he was actually quite friendly. On his right was Jiwon, an aquatic Quellan who communicated through beautiful patterns of light that danced across her translucent skin. "Today marks the beginning of your final examination," Professor Velthar announced, his voice entering their minds through telepathy rather than sound. "You will document the behavioral patterns of an apex predator in its natural environment." A ripple of concern passed through the classroom. Minho, a reptilian Korvath student sitting in front of Doyen, let out a small hiss of worry. His scales shifted from green to a pale yellow, which Doyen had learned meant fear. The professor continued, "You will work in groups of 4. I have already assigned teams based on your skills and compatibility." He waved a hand and holographic lists appeared in the air, showing names grouped together. Doyen found himself paired with Taemin, Jiwon, and Minho. Taemin's antennae twitched with what might have been approval. "Good team," he clicked in his natural language, which Doyen's translator earpiece converted to standard speech. "We have chemical analysis, communication skills, thermal sensing, and—" He paused, looking at Doyen. "Whatever humans are good at." Doyen smiled. "We're good at not dying." The professor displayed another hologram, this time showing a long list of creatures. Each had a category rating from 1 to 10. "These are approved predators for your study. Category 1 and 2 are recommended for most students. Category 3 requires additional safety equipment. Categories 4 and above require special permission and military-grade protective gear." Students immediately began discussing which predator to choose. Most groups pointed at Category 2 creatures, things that looked dangerous but were apparently manageable with proper precautions. Doyen scrolled through the list on his personal datapad, reading descriptions with genuine interest. Mountain crawlers from Hexus 9, shadow hunters from the Krell Nebula, void stalkers that lived in zero-gravity environments. Each one was fascinating, then he saw it. Category 7, Vorask, native to volcanic jungle worlds, 6 meters long, acidic saliva, thermal vision, enhanced hearing. Ambush predator, kill rate against sentient beings, 98%. "This one looks interesting," Doyen said, turning his pad to show his teammates. Jiwon's bioluminescent patterns flashed bright red, which Doyen had learned meant alarm or danger. Taemin's entire body went rigid. Minho's scales turned completely white and he made a choking sound. "That is not interesting," Minho said, his voice shaking. "That is suicide." "Category 7 predators have killed professional hunters," Taemin added, his translator barely keeping up with his rapid clicking. "Trained military personnel with weapons. Students never attempt anything above Category 4. Doyen looked at the image of the Vorask again. It did look dangerous, with its black scales, massive claws, and rows of glowing fangs, but he had seen similar creatures before, just smaller versions. "It says here they're ambush predators. That means they rely on surprise. If we understand their patterns, we can predict their behavior." "Predict?" Jiwon's patterns pulsed in confused yellow spirals. "You cannot predict death." "Look," Doyen said patiently, "I grew up around dangerous animals. My family runs a wildlife center back on Earth. I've handled creatures that could easily kill me. The key is understanding them, respecting them, but not fearing them." "What kind of creatures?" Minho asked suspiciously. "Bears, mostly. Some big cats. Venomous snakes. One time a wild boar charged through our fence." Doyen shrugged like this was completely normal. His teammates stared at him. Taemin's translator made a sound that might have been laughter or horror. "You live near creatures that hunt you?" "Well, they don't really hunt us anymore. We're too much trouble. But yeah, Earth has lots of dangerous animals. We just learned to coexist with them." Professor Velthar approached their table, his presence making all 4 students straighten up. "Have you chosen your subject?" Doyen looked at his teammates. Taemin's antennae drooped. Jiwon's patterns had faded to dim, resigned blue. Minho looked like he might faint. But none of them said no. In Galactic Academy culture, disagreeing with a teammate directly was considered extremely rude. "We're considering the Vorask, Professor," Doyen said. The classroom went silent. Every student nearby turned to stare. Even Professor Velthar's telepathic presence seemed to pause, which was unusual for someone who communicated through thought. The Vorask, the professor repeated slowly, is not recommended for students. It is on the list only because the Academy must provide comprehensive options. In 300 years of this program, no student has ever chosen a Category 7 predator. Then we'd be the first, Doyen said simply. Professor Velthar's large eyes studied Doyen for a long moment. You understand that observers have died studying Vorasks even with military protection? I understand the risks, sir. Do your teammates agree? The professor looked at each of them in turn. Taemin clicked nervously. If Doyen believes it is possible, I trust his judgment. Though his body language suggested he deeply regretted this decision, Jiwon's patterns showed uncertainty but loyalty. I will support my team. Minho took longer to respond. His scales flickered through several colors before settling on a determined orange. I do not want to do this, but I also do not want to fail this class. If the human thinks we can survive, then I suppose we try. Professor Velthar nodded slowly. Very well. Your choice is registered. However, I strongly suggest you visit the observation deck first. See your chosen subject before you commit fully. You have until tomorrow to change your selection. After class, the 4 teammates made their way to the observation deck, a massive facility where the Academy kept various creatures in stasis for study. The Vorask was held in a reinforced containment unit in the restricted section. They needed special permission just to view it. When the containment screen became transparent, all 3 of Doyen's alien teammates stepped backward. The Vorask was enormous, even in its sleeping state. Its obsidian scales seemed to absorb light. Each claw was as long as Doyen's forearm. The teeth glowed with a faint blue light that indicated the paralytic venom they secreted. Taemin's translator stopped working entirely, overwhelmed by the fear pheromones he was releasing. Minho actually did faint, his body going limp as his natural defense mechanism kicked in. Jiwon's patterns went completely dark. Doyen stepped closer to the glass, studying the creature's muscle structure. He pulled out his notebook and began sketching, noting the way its limbs were built for explosive speed, how its skull structure suggested excellent hearing, the thermal pits near its nostrils. Beautiful, he said quietly. This is going to be an amazing project. Behind him, Jiwon's patterns flickered back to life, pulsing in what her species called the color of madness. She was beginning to understand what the rest of the galaxy would soon learn. Humans were not like other species. They looked soft and weak, but something in their evolution had made them different. They saw a creature that killed 98% of those who encountered it, and instead of running, they took notes. Minho woke up a few minutes later. Please tell me I dreamed that. No dream, Taemin said, his translator working again. We are really doing this. Doyen turned from the glass, smiling with genuine enthusiasm. Don't worry, I've got experience with this kind of thing. We just need to prepare properly, understand its behavior, and respect its space. It'll be fine. As they left the observation deck, word was already spreading across campus. The human exchange student had chosen a Vorask for his final project. By dinner time, half the academy knew. By the next morning, students from every species were talking about it. Some called it bravery, others called it stupidity. But everyone agreed on one thing. They would definitely be watching when Doyen and his team entered the biodome. No one had ever seen a Category 7 examination before. This would either be the most educational moment in Academy history, or the quickest tragedy ever recorded. Doyen, for his part, just continued his research, completely unaware that he had become the most talked-about student in the entire Galactic Academy. News traveled fast in the Galactic Academy. By the second day after team selections, every student knew about the human who had chosen to study a Vorask. In the hallways, conversations stopped when Doyen walked past. In the cafeteria, students from species he had never even met pointed at him and whispered. Hana, his human roommate and one of the only other humans at the academy, cornered him after breakfast. She was studying linguistics and had always been the more cautious of the two. Are you actually insane? She asked, switching to Korean so the translators wouldn't pick it up. A Vorask? Do you know how many people those things have killed? I read the files. Doyen replied calmly, carrying his tray to their usual table. 98% kill rate, but that's because most people panic. Panic makes you pray. Most people panic because it's a logical response to a 6-meter death machine. Sora, the third human student, joined them. She studied engineering and was usually very quiet. But even she looked concerned. My professor heard about it. She asked if Earth has some kind of death wish written into our DNA. Doyen laughed. We're persistence hunters. Our ancestors used to chase animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We're literally built to outlast things that are bigger and stronger than us. A Vorask is dangerous, sure, but it's not invincible. Hana put her head in her hands. You sound like my uncle explaining why he swims with sharks for fun. Your uncle sounds cool. My uncle has 3 missing fingers. Across the cafeteria, Doyen spotted his teammates. Taemin waved one of his upper limbs, and Doyen excused himself to join them. As he walked over, he noticed that the tables around them were unusually empty. Other students were keeping their distance. People are afraid to sit near us, Minho said miserably. His scales were a dull gray, the color of depression in his species. They think we are cursed or stupid. Possibly both. They think we will not survive to graduation, Jiwon added, her patterns showing resigned acceptance. My clutch sister sent me a message saying goodbye. She thinks these are my final days. Taemin clicked thoughtfully. I have been researching Earth. Your planet is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. That is the highest danger rating in the database. Really? Doyen had never bothered to check Earth's classification. What makes it Class 12? Everything, Taemin said simply. He pulled up his data pad and began reading. Extreme weather patterns, dangerous radiation from your sun, tectonic instability, frequent meteor impacts in your prehistory, but mostly the native life forms. He looked at Doyen with all his compound eyes. Your planet has more apex predators per square kilometer than any other inhabited world in the database. That seems like an exaggeration. You have predators in your oceans that can bite a boat in half. You have land predators that hunt in coordinated packs. You have aerial predators with vision so sharp they can see a small animal from 2 kilometers away. You have predators that use venom, others that use ambush tactics, others that use pure strength. Taemin's antennae drooped, and somehow humans became the dominant species anyway. Jiwon's patterns flickered with curiosity. How did your species survive? Doyen thought about it. We're smart. We work together. We make tools. And we don't give up easily. If something is trying to kill us, we figure out how to kill it back, or how to avoid it, or how to make peace with it, he shrugged. Humans are adaptable. This explains much, Minho said quietly. When you looked at the Vorask, you were not afraid. You saw it the way you see any other predator from your world. Pretty much. I mean, it's bigger than a bear and has acid spit. But the principles are the same. Learn its behavior, respect its space, and stay alert. A commotion at the cafeteria entrance made everyone look up. A group of senior students had entered, led by a large Korvath named Taejin. He was in his final year and had a reputation for being arrogant. His scales were a bright, aggressive red as he approached Doyen's table. So this is the dead student, Taejin said loudly, making sure everyone in the cafeteria could hear. The human who thinks he can study a Category 7 predator. Doyen looked up calmly. Can I help you? I am trying to understand your reasoning, Taejin continued, circling the table like he was giving a lecture. Are humans simply ignorant of danger? Or is this some kind of religious death ritual? Neither. It's just homework. The cafeteria laughed, though the sound was nervous. Taejin's scales darkened slightly, embarrassed by the response. You mock this because you do not understand. I have seen recordings of Vorask attacks. They move faster than your human eyes can track. Their claws can cut through military armor. Their acid can dissolve flesh in seconds. Sounds dangerous, Doyen agreed. Yet you are not concerned? I'm concerned enough to prepare properly. Not concerned enough to pick something easier. Doyen met Taejin's eyes steadily. What did your group choose? A Category 4 dune serpent. A respectable challenge that will not result in our deaths. That is a respectable choice, Doyen said genuinely. Good luck with your project. Taejin seemed frustrated that Doyen would not argue. He leaned down, his snout close to Doyen's face. I will be watching your presentation, human, if you survive long enough to give one. Great, I'll save you a good seat. After Taejin and his group left, Minho let out a breath he had been holding. You are either very brave or very foolish. I am not sure which. Maybe both, Doyen admitted. But I meant what I said. With proper preparation, we can do this safely. Over the next week, Doyen threw himself into research. He spent hours in the Academy library reading every available file on Vorasks. He learned that they were native to volcanic worlds where the heat helped regulate their body temperature. They were ambush predators that relied on surprise and speed rather than sustained pursuit. Their hearing was exceptional, but their eyesight in bright light was poor. They hunted primarily at dawn and dusk when the light was dim. Jiwon discovered something interesting in the restricted archives. She had special access because of her research status, and she found old military reports about Vorask encounters. Most deaths occur because people run, she reported to the team. Running triggers the Vorask's chase instinct. The few survivors were those who stayed still or moved very slowly. Like with earth bears, Doyen said excitedly. If you run from a bear, it will chase you. If you stand your ground and make yourself look big, sometimes it will back off. But these reports also say Vorasks have excellent thermal sensing, Taman added. They can detect body heat through walls. Hiding is almost impossible. Then we don't hide. We work with its behavior, not against it. Minho was less confident. I have been trying to find stories of successful Vorask studies. I found 7 attempts in the last 50 years. 3 teams withdrew before entering the enclosure. 3 teams died within the first 10 minutes. 1 team survived, but only because they stayed in a reinforced vehicle the entire time and never got close enough for good data. Then we'll be the first to do it properly, Doyen said. While his teammates grew more nervous, Doyen began physical training. Every morning before classes, he ran laps around the academy track. He practiced climbing in the gymnasium. He did endurance exercises that left him exhausted but stronger. Taman watched one of these training sessions with confusion. Why are you preparing your body? This is an observation mission, not combat. On Earth we have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I'm not planning to fight the Vorask, but I want to be ready for anything. Humans are strange, Taman clicked, but there was admiration in his tone. The breakthrough came 5 days before the exam. Doyen was reviewing thermal scans of Vorask hunting patterns when he noticed something. Look at this, he told his team, projecting the data in the air. Every successful hunt happens within 20 minutes. After that, the Vorask always returns to its den. 20 minutes is their optimal hunting window, Jiwon observed, her patterns brightening with understanding. After that, they overheat. Exactly. They're built for explosive speed and power, not endurance. Their metabolism runs hot, which is why they live near volcanic heat sources, but that also means sustained activity drains them fast. Minho's scales shifted to an interested green. So if we can avoid the initial attack, the danger drops significantly, Doyen finished. We just need to survive the first 20 minutes. Just? Minho's scales flickered back to worried yellow. That evening, Doyun found Hana in their shared quarters. She was working on an assignment, but she looked up when he entered. You look excited. Should I be worried? I figured out how to do this safely, he said, explaining his discovery about the Vorask's endurance limitations. Hana listened, then shook her head with a smile. You know what's funny? Back home, people always thought humans were weak because we don't have claws or venom or armor, but we survived because we can outlast anything. We can run longer, hunt longer, work longer than almost any other predator on Earth. That's what makes us dangerous, Doyen agreed. We don't quit. Promise me you'll be careful, though. I don't want to have to tell your mother that her son got eaten by an alien lizard. I promise. Besides, Taman is growing on me. I think we're actually becoming friends. The giant bug alien? He's not that bad once you get used to the clicking sounds. 2 days before the exam, The morning of the examination arrived with clear skies outside the Academy's viewing domes. Inside the biodome facility, the atmosphere was anything but calm. Students crowded around viewing screens throughout the campus. Word had spread that today was the day the human would face the Vorask, and nobody wanted to miss it. Doyen arrived at the preparation area early. He wore standard Academy field gear, a simple jumpsuit designed for various environments, boots with good grip, and a utility belt. On the belt, he carried basic tools, a coil of strong rope, a standard field knife, a powerful flashlight, and several empty sample containers. No weapons, no armor, no protective shields, just simple equipment and his own skills. Taman, Jiwon, and Minho arrived soon after, looking significantly more protected. They wore environmental suits with climate control, communication systems, and emergency beacons. They would observe from a hover platform equipped with shields and a quick escape system. You should wear a suit, Minho said for perhaps the 20th time since they had arrived. His scales were cycling through colors so fast it was making Doyen dizzy. Please, I am begging you. The suit is too bulky, Doyen explained patiently. I need to move freely. Besides, the Vorask's thermal vision would see me either way. The suit won't help. It has shields, which would fail after one hit from those claws. Better to avoid getting hit at all. In the observation theater above the biodome, hundreds of students were gathering. Professor Velthar stood at the front with other faculty members, their expressions grave. Hana and Sora had secured seats in the front row. Hana gripped her armrest so tightly her knuckles were white. "He's going to be fine," Sora whispered, though she did not sound convinced. "He better be," Hana replied, "or I'm going to kill him myself." The preparation technician, a small furry alien named Borum, approached Doyen nervously. "The Vorask has been moved to Sector 7 Beta. That is the volcanic jungle environment. Temperature is 43 degrees standard. High humidity. Limited visibility due to volcanic fog. The terrain includes lava tubes, geothermal vents, and unstable rock formations." "Understood," Doyen said, checking his equipment one final time. "The Predator was released 30 minutes ago to acclimate. It will be hunting ready when you enter." Borum's translator conveyed her worry. "Student Doyen, I have worked here for 15 years. I have never seen anyone go into a Category 7 zone without heavy weapons." "Are you certain about this?" "I'm certain," Doyen said with a calm smile. "Thank you for your concern." Borum shook her head and walked away, muttering something in her native language that the translator rendered as, "Humans are insane." The hover platform lifted off with Taemin, Jiwon, and Minho aboard. It would enter the dome first, giving them an aerial view. Doyen would follow on foot through the ground entrance. The plan was simple: locate the Vorask, observe its behavior in its territory, and document everything while staying alive. In the observation theater, the main screen activated, showing multiple camera angles of Sector 7 Beta. The environment looked like something from ancient Earth, before humans had tamed the wilderness. Twisted trees with dark leaves grew between volcanic rocks. Steam rose from cracks in the ground. The air shimmered with heat. It was beautiful and deadly. "I see movement." Taemin's voice came through the communication system, slightly distorted by interference from the volcanic activity. His compound eyes were perfect for spotting details in complex environments. "Thermal signature near the eastern lava tubes, large. That is definitely our target." On the screen, students could see the Vorask. It was even more terrifying in motion than it had been in stasis. Its obsidian scales reflected the red glow from the lava. Every movement was fluid and powerful. It was currently investigating the terrain, marking its territory. Professor Velthar's telepathic voice reached every student in the theater. "What you are about to witness is unprecedented. No student has attempted direct observation of a Category 7 predator. We have emergency extraction teams ready. If the situation becomes critical, we will intervene." "That assumes there will be time to intervene," another professor muttered. Doyen stood at the ground entrance, waiting for the signal. He closed his eyes and took several deep breaths, centering himself. This was just like the time he had tracked the injured bear near his family's property, or when he had relocated the venomous snakes that had nested too close to the village. Dangerous, yes, but manageable with the right approach. The door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Hot, humid air rushed in, carrying the smell of sulfur and volcanic ash. Doyen stepped through. The heat hit him immediately, but he had prepared for this. Humans were excellent at regulating body temperature through sweating. It was one of their evolutionary advantages. Where the Vorask would overheat from exertion, Doyen could maintain activity much longer. "I'm in," he said quietly. His voice transmitted to both his teammates and the observation theater. Beginning tracking. He moved carefully through the terrain, his eyes scanning for signs. There, claw marks on a rock fresh and deep. There, a patch of vegetation melted by acid. There, a partial footprint in the volcanic ash. The Vorask had passed through this area recently, probably within the last 10 minutes. Above, the hover platform followed at a safe distance. Minho was providing running commentary, his voice shaking. "He is following the trail. The trail that leads to the Predator. He is walking towards certain death. Have faith," Taemin clicked, though his antennae were vibrating with stress. "If Doyen says he can do this, perhaps he can." Jiwon's patterns pulsed in rapid, anxious sequences. She was recording everything, her species' natural ability to process visual information making her an excellent documentarian. Doyen followed the trail deeper into the sector. He could hear the Vorask now, a low rumbling sound like distant thunder. It was close, very close. He crouched behind a large volcanic rock and slowly peered around the edge. There it was. The Vorask was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. It was resting near a geothermal vent, absorbing heat to maintain its metabolism. Its eyes were closed, but Doyen knew better than to assume it was sleeping. Predators like this were always alert, always aware of their surroundings. In the observation theater, someone gasped. The camera view showed Doyen less than 50 meters from the creature, separated only by broken terrain and scattered rocks. It was the closest any student had ever been to a Category 7 predator outside of protected vehicles. "What is he doing?" a student whispered. "He is observing," Professor Velthar replied, his mental voice carrying respect. "Watch and learn." Doyen pulled out his notebook and began sketching, his movements slow and deliberate. He noted the Vorask's breathing rate, the way its muscles tensed and relaxed, the pattern of its scales. This was valuable data that no one had been able to collect before. Then he did something that made the entire observation theater erupt in alarm. He intentionally stepped on a loose rock, making noise. The Vorask's eyes snapped open, glowing with predatory intelligence. Its head turned toward Doyen's position with mechanical precision. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. "Emergency extraction," someone shouted in the theater.
"Get him out now!"
But Professor Velthar raised a hand. "Wait, watch." The Vorask rose to its feet, its full size now apparent. It was even larger than Doyen had estimated, easily 6.5 meters from nose to tail. Its claws scraped against volcanic rock, leaving deep gouges. The glowing fangs in its mouth dripped with acid that sizzled when it hit the ground. Doyen did not run. He stood his ground, making himself visible but not threatening. He kept his body language neutral, his movements slow. He was showing the Vorask that he was aware of it, acknowledging its presence without challenging it. The creature tilted its head, studying this strange intruder. Most prey ran. This one stood still. The Vorask's thermal vision showed the human's body heat, confirmed it was alive, verified it was made of meat. But something about its behavior was wrong, not fitting the normal pattern. Then Doyen did something even more unexpected. He stepped backward slowly, giving the Vorask more space. He was showing respect for its territory, acknowledging that this was the predator's domain. In the observation theater, Hana was gripping Sora's arm so hard it would leave bruises. "What is he doing?" she hissed. "I think," Sora said slowly, "he's communicating with it. Body language. Like how you would with a dog or a bear. That is not a dog." On the screens, the standoff continued. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. The Vorask remained still, watching. Doyen remained calm, respectful, non-threatening. Then the Vorask made its decision. It lunged. The creature moved with incredible speed, crossing the distance in seconds. Its claws extended, its mouth opened wide, and it came straight at Doyen like a missile made of scales and fury. Doyen ran, but he did not run away in panic. He ran toward a specific location he had identified earlier, a narrow lava tube, a natural tunnel in the volcanic rock. He dove into the entrance just as the Vorask's claws struck the stone where he had been standing, sending up sparks and fragments of rock. The tube was too narrow for the Vorask's full body. It could not follow him inside. The creature roared in frustration, a sound that made everyone in the observation theater cover their ears or equivalent sensory organs. From inside the tube, Doyen's voice came through clearly, still calm. First attack, 7.3 seconds from first movement to strike point. Speed estimated at 35 kilometers per hour. Attack pattern follows standard ambush predator behavior. Close distance rapidly, attempt to end encounter quickly. "He is taking notes," Minho said in disbelief.
"He is almost dead and he is taking notes."
The Vorask circled the lava tube entrance, trying to find another way in. Its claws scraped against rock. Its acid dripped into the tunnel, forcing Doyen to move deeper to avoid it. But the creature could not reach him. After 3 minutes of trying, the Vorask stepped back. It made a huffing sound almost like frustration and returned to its geothermal vent. The first attack had failed. It would wait for the prey to emerge. Inside the tube, Doyen smiled. The first test was complete. He had survived the initial ambush by using terrain and preparation. Now came the second phase, understanding the Vorask's endurance limits. He pulled out his water container and drank slowly, staying hydrated in the extreme heat. Above ground, the Vorask waited, patient and deadly. The dance had begun. Inside the lava tube, Doyen checked his chronometer. 3 minutes had passed since the first attack. He took another slow drink of water and wiped sweat from his forehead. The heat was intense but manageable. His body was doing exactly what millions of years of evolution had designed it to do, cooling itself efficiently through perspiration. Outside, the Vorask waited with the patience of a creature that had no natural predators. Its thermal vision could detect Doyen's heat signature inside the tube. It knew the prey was trapped. All it had to do was wait for the human to emerge. But Doyen was not trapped. He was studying. He moved through the lava tube quietly, finding another opening about 20 meters away. This exit was smaller, partially hidden by volcanic rock formations. He peered out carefully, observing the Vorask from a new angle. The creature was magnificent. Its scales were not just black, but seemed to shift in the light, showing hints of deep purple and blue. Its breathing was deep and regular, conserving energy. Every few seconds, its head would turn slightly, tracking Doyen's position inside the tube with thermal sense. "Status update," Doyen whispered into his communicator. "I'm safe. The lava tubes provide excellent protection. The Vorask's size is a disadvantage in confined spaces." Above, on the hover platform, his teammates were experiencing various states of panic. Minho's scales had turned completely white and were flickering like a broken light. Jiwon's patterns were chaotic, shifting between colors so fast they blurred together. Only Taemin maintained some composure, though his antennae were vibrating rapidly. "You call that safe?" Minho's voice came back, high-pitched with stress. "You almost died." "Almost only counts in some games," Doyen replied, using an Earth expression that the translator struggled with. "I'm ready for Phase 2. In the observation theater, Professor Velthar was leaning forward with intense interest. Other faculty members were frantically taking notes. This was unprecedented data about Vorask behavior. The creature had failed its initial ambush, which rarely happened in recorded history. Hana was watching the screens with a mixture of pride and terror. "He's actually doing it," she whispered. "He's actually studying that thing. But why is he not leaving?" asked a nearby student, a floating blob-like species that communicated through vibrations. "He could request extraction now. He has gathered data. Why risk more?" "Because he's human," Sora answered quietly. "We don't do things halfway." On the ground, Doyen emerged from the secondary tube exit. He moved deliberately, making noise to attract the Vorask's attention. The creature's head snapped around immediately, spotting him. For a moment, they locked eyes across 30 meters of volcanic terrain. Then Doyen did something that seemed completely insane to every observer. He threw a rock at the Vorask. The small volcanic stone bounced harmlessly off the creature's thick scales, but the meaning was clear. It was a challenge, a provocation. The Vorask roared, the sound echoing across the sector, and charged again. This time, Doyen did not hide. He ran along the open terrain, choosing his path carefully. The Vorask followed, its speed incredible, closing the distance with every second. But Doyen was not running randomly. He was leading the creature through specific terrain, making it work for every meter gained. Over a field of unstable rocks that shifted under the Vorask's weight, slowing it down. Through a narrow path between two large boulders that forced the creature to turn sideways. Around a geothermal vent that spewed hot steam, obscuring thermal vision temporarily. "He is playing with it," Taemin observed, his translator barely keeping up with his rapid clicking. "No, not playing. He is testing it, learning its movement patterns." The chase continued for 7 minutes, then 9, then 12. Doyen kept moving, maintaining distance but never quite escaping. He would slow down when the Vorask fell too far behind, speed up when it got too close. He was controlling the pace of the encounter, and the Vorask was getting tired. At 15 minutes, the creature's movements were noticeably slower. Its breathing was heavier. The volcanic environment that usually helped it maintain body temperature was now working against it. The sustained chase was causing it to overheat. At 18 minutes, the Vorask stumbled slightly, its coordination affected by heat exhaustion. At 20 minutes, it stopped chasing entirely. The creature stood in the middle of the sector, breathing heavily, its mouth open to release excess heat. It had never experienced this before. Prey did not do this. Prey either died quickly or escaped quickly. They did not lead a predator on a calculated chase designed to exhaust it. Doyen stopped running too. He turned to face the Vorask from about 15 meters away, both of them breathing hard, though Doyen's breathing was much more controlled. He was sweating heavily, but his body was managing the heat efficiently. The Vorask, built for explosive speed and power, was overheated and exhausted. In the observation theater, absolute silence reigned. What they were witnessing went against everything they knew about predator-prey relationships. The human had not just survived. He had outmaneuvered an apex predator. "This is impossible," a professor whispered. "This is humanity," Professor Velthar corrected. "This is what it means to be from a death world." They evolved alongside creatures like this. They learned to survive not through strength but through endurance and intelligence. Slowly, carefully, Doyen began to approach the exhausted Vorask. Every movement was deliberate, non-threatening. He kept his hands visible, his posture relaxed. The creature watched him but did not attack. It did not have the energy. Doyen, what are you doing? Jiwan's patterns flashed an alarm from the hover platform. Getting the data we came for, he replied calmly. He circled around the Vorask, observing it from different angles. He took photographs with his datapad, capturing images of its scale patterns, tooth structure, and claw formation. He collected a shed scale from the ground nearby, placing it carefully in a sample container. The Vorask's eyes followed him, wary but not aggressive. Some deep instinct was telling it that this strange creature was not normal prey. This was something different, something that did not fit the usual patterns, something to be cautious about. Doyen approached closer, now within 5 meters. The observation theater collectively held its breath. He pulled out a small scanner and took readings of the Vorask's body temperature, heart rate, and breathing pattern. The creature could have killed him with one swipe, but it remained still, watching. Temperature elevated by 8 degrees standard, Doyen recorded quietly. Breathing rate triple the resting baseline. Clear signs of heat exhaustion. This confirms the 20-minute threshold for sustainable activity. He moved around to the Vorask's side, studying the way its muscles attached to its skeletal structure. He made detailed sketches noting everything. This was data that scientists had tried to gather for decades, data that had cost lives to pursue. And Doyen was collecting it from less than 3 meters away from a fully conscious apex predator. Finally, he did something that made even Professor Velthar's telepathic presence pulse with alarm. He reached out slowly and touched one of the Vorask's scales. The texture was fascinating, smooth but with tiny ridges that helped with heat dissipation. The scale was cooler than he expected, the creature's biology working hard to release the excess heat. The Vorask's head turned to look at him directly, and for a long moment human and alien predator regarded each other. "Thank you," Doyen said quietly, knowing the creature could not understand the words but hoping it might understand the tone. "You're an amazing species." He stepped back slowly, giving the Vorask space. The creature watched him retreat, then slowly moved back to its geothermal vent. It needed to cool down to rest. The strange prey had proven itself something other than food, perhaps something that warranted respect rather than hunting. Doyen made his way back to the extraction point, walking calmly through the volcanic terrain. His teammates brought the hover platform down, still in shock at what they had witnessed. "That was," Taman started, then stopped. His translator could not find adequate words. "Insane," Mignot offered, his scales slowly returning to normal colors. "Brilliant? Terrifying? All of those," Jiwan's patterns pulsed in agreement. Doyen climbed onto the platform, exhausted but satisfied. "We got everything we needed. Behavioral data, physical measurements, environmental interactions, and even a scale sample. This is going to be an excellent report." As they rose up toward the exit, Doyen looked back one more time at the Vorask. The creature was resting now, recovering its strength. In the wild, it was an unstoppable killer. But here, faced with a different kind of predator, one that used endurance and intelligence instead of claws and teeth, it had met its match. The platform exited the biodome into the preparation area. As soon as the doors opened, they were surrounded by students, faculty, and staff. Everyone was talking at once, asking questions, expressing disbelief. Professor Velthar pushed through the crowd, his large eyes fixed on Doyen. "What you just did," he said telepathically, his mental voice reaching everyone present, "will be studied for generations. You have demonstrated something we thought impossible. I just collected data for my homework, Professor." "No," the old Zentari replied. "You showed us what humanity truly is. Not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the most naturally armed, but perhaps the most dangerous because you refuse to accept that anything is impossible." Doyen smiled tiredly. "We just don't give up easily. It's kind of our thing." In the observation theater, the recorded footage was already being copied and distributed. By tomorrow, every student in the Galactic Academy would have seen it. By next week, it would spread to other institutions across the galaxy. The human who had treated a Category 7 predator like a research subject rather than a death sentence. The Deathworlder who had turned a final examination into a masterclass on persistence hunting. The student who had calmly taken notes while being chased by an apex predator. Hana and Sora pushed through the crowd to reach Doyen. Hana hugged him tightly, then immediately punched his shoulder. "Don't you ever scare me like that again?" "Sorry," Doyen said, wincing. "But we got an A, right?" "You better have," Sora laughed. "After that performance, they should give you a doctorate." As the excitement continued around them, Doyen's 3 teammates stood together, processing what they had experienced. They had entered the biodome expecting to watch their human teammate die. Instead, they had witnessed something that would change their understanding of what was possible. "I will never complain about homework again," Minho said quietly. "I will never look at humans the same way," Jiwon added. Taemin clicked thoughtfully. "I think we should celebrate surviving, and perhaps never ever volunteer for another project with Doyen." But even as he said it, all three of them knew they would follow the human anywhere, because they had learned something important today. Sometimes the most dangerous creature in the room was not the one with the biggest claws or the sharpest teeth. Sometimes it was the one who refused to quit. The next morning, Doyen woke up to find himself famous. His communicator had 347 messages. The Academy network had crashed twice overnight from everyone trying to access the footage of his examination. Students he had never met stopped him in the hallways to ask questions or simply stare in awe. It was deeply uncomfortable. "I just want to eat breakfast," he muttered to Hana as they navigated through another crowd of onlookers in the cafeteria. "You wrestled an apex predator with your bare hands," Hana replied, clearly enjoying his discomfort. "What did you expect? They are going to name a building after you." "I did not wrestle it. I studied it. There's a difference." They found Taemin, Jiwon, and Minho at their usual table, though the empty space around them was gone. Now their table was the most popular spot in the cafeteria. Students from dozens of species wanted to hear first-hand accounts of the examination. Taemin was in his element, using all four of his limbs to gesture dramatically as he recounted the story. And then the human just stopped running and turned around. The Vorask was exhausted, and Doyen walked right up to it like approaching a domestic pet. "It was not that close," Doyen interjected, sitting down with his food tray. "It was 3 meters, Minho corrected, his scales flashing with remembered fear. "I measured. 3 meters from a Category 7 predator. I thought my heart would stop." Jiwon's patterns pulsed in agreement. "My entire family has watched the footage. My clutch mother wants to know if all humans are like this." I told her I do not know, but I suspect yes. A group of faculty members approached the table, led by Professor Velthar. The conversation died down as students realized something official was happening. "Doyen and team," the professor's telepathic voice reached them formally. "Your examination has been reviewed by the entire xenobiology department. We are unanimous in our decision." "Here it comes," Doyen thought. "They are going to reprimand us for being reckless." "You have received the highest score ever recorded in the history of this program," Professor Velthar continued. "Your data on Vorask behavior is unprecedented. Your methodology, while unorthodox, demonstrated exceptional understanding of predator psychology and environmental adaptation. You have set a new standard for xenobiological field research." The cafeteria erupted in applause from multiple species, creating a symphony of sounds, clicking, humming, whistling, and actual clapping. Professor Velthar raised a hand for silence. "However, I must also inform you that the Galactic Academy Board has implemented new protocols. Human exchange students will now require special classification reviews before attempting projects above Category 4. Earth's Deathworld status is being officially recognized in all academic policies." Doyen blinked. "Wait, does that mean I got humans restricted?" "No." The professor's mental voice carried something that might have been amusement. "It means the galaxy is finally taking humans seriously. Your species has been underestimated for too long. This corrects that error." After the faculty left, Sora leaned over from the neighboring table. "You realize what this means, right? You just changed how the entire galactic community sees Earth." "I just wanted to pass my class," Doyen protested. But the implications were already spreading beyond the academy. News networks across multiple systems had picked up the story. The footage of a human student calmly studying a Vorask was being analyzed by military strategists, evolutionary biologists, and social scientists throughout the galaxy. The question everyone was asking, if one human could do this alone with basic equipment, what could humanity accomplish as a species? Several days later, Doyen was called to the Academy Administration building. He entered nervously, wondering if he was in trouble despite the high grade. Instead, he found representatives from the Galactic Community Defense Force waiting. Commander Unim, a distinguished Korvath with silver scales denoting age and experience, studied Doyen with respect. "We have reviewed your examination footage extensively. Your demonstration of persistence tactics, environmental adaptation, and threat assessment is exactly what we need in reconnaissance specialists." "I'm not military," Doyen said carefully. "We understand. But we wanted to meet the human who showed us a new approach to dealing with apex predators. Many worlds in the galactic community have dangerous fauna that limits colonization and resource access. Your methodology could save lives. Another representative, a Zentari named Keelan, added mentally, "We have also accelerated Earth's application to join the Defense Force Alliance. Your planet's training methods for handling dangerous species could benefit the entire galaxy." Doyen felt overwhelmed. He had just wanted to study something interesting. Now diplomats and military commanders were discussing Earth's role in galactic defense because of his homework assignment. "Can I think about this?" he asked. "Of course," Commander Unim said respectfully, "but know that humanity has earned recognition today, not through weapons or technology, but through demonstrating capabilities that no other species has shown." After they left, Doyun sat alone in the administration waiting room, processing everything. His communicator buzzed. A message from his mother back on Earth. "Your father and I watched the footage. We're very proud. Also, your grandmother says you should have brought the Vorask home. She thinks it would get along with the dogs." He laughed. That was so typically his family, treating apex predators like potential pets. That evening, there was a celebration in the student commons. Doyen's team was the center of attention, though Taman was doing most of the talking. Mino had finally relaxed enough that his scales stayed a happy green color. Jiwan was showing anyone interested how to read her species' bioluminescent patterns. Taijin, the senior student who had mocked them in the cafeteria, approached hesitantly. His scales were a subdued blue, the color of apology in Korvath culture. "I owe you an apology, Doyen. I called you foolish. I was wrong." "No hard feelings," Doyen said genuinely. "How did your Dune Serpent project go?" "We got a good grade, but nothing like what you accomplished." Taijin hesitated. Would you consider teaching a seminar on Deathworld survival techniques? Many of us realize we have much to learn from humanity." "Maybe," Doyen said, "but I'm not sure I'm qualified to teach. I just did what felt natural." "That is exactly why you should teach." Professor Velthar's mental voice joined the conversation. The old Zentari had been observing from nearby. "You demonstrated instincts that your species developed over millions of years. The rest of the galaxy needs to understand that kind of evolution." Over the following weeks, life at the academy settled into a new normal. Doyen was no longer just another exchange student. He was a symbol of what humanity represented, a species that looked soft and vulnerable, but was actually one of the most formidable in the galaxy when properly motivated. Exchange programs between Earth and other worlds expanded rapidly. More humans began arriving at the academy, each one surprising their classmates with capabilities that seemed impossible for such a relatively weak-looking species. Hana started a comparative evolution course, teaching alien students about Earth's biodiversity. Sora helped design new safety equipment based on human intuition about threat assessment, and Doyen reluctantly agreed to occasional lectures on persistence hunting and predator behavior. His friendship with Taman, Jiwan, and Minho deepened into something rare in the galaxy. True interspecies friendship, built on shared experience and mutual respect. They began working on other projects together, though by unanimous vote nothing above Category 4 ever again. 6 months after the examination, Doyen received a message from the Vorask Preservation Society. The creature he had studied had been successfully relocated to a proper habitat world where it could live naturally. The data he had collected was being used to help establish breeding programs for endangered apex predators across the galaxy. "You saved a species," Taman clicked when Doyen showed him the message. "By refusing to fear it, you helped preserve it." "That's kind of poetic," Doyen admitted. On the 1-year anniversary of the infamous examination, the Academy held a symposium on Deathworld species and their evolutionary advantages. Doyen sat in the audience, listening to scientists discuss persistence hunting, endurance adaptations, and the psychological factors that made humans such effective survivors. Professor Velthar gave the closing speech, his telepathic voice reaching everyone in the large auditorium. "We have learned much this year. We have learned that strength comes in many forms, that the most dangerous predator is not always the one with the biggest claws, that intelligence and determination can overcome almost any physical disadvantage." His large eyes found Doyen in the crowd. "But most importantly, we have learned that humanity belongs among the stars. Not as conquerors or warriors, but as survivors who refuse to accept that anything is impossible. The human who walked into the biodome with basic tools and walked out with comprehensive data taught us all something valuable. Never underestimate a species simply because they look harmless. The auditorium erupted in applause, and Doyen felt his face flush with embarrassment. He still was not comfortable with all the attention. Later, back in his quarters, Doyen looked at the view of space through his window. Earth was out there somewhere, the blue marble that had produced a species crazy enough to chase bears, swim with sharks, and apparently study Vorasks for homework. His communicator buzzed. A message from Taman. Next semester there's a course on Category 6 predators. Just observational, no fieldwork. Want to take it together? Doyen smiled and typed back. Only if we can do fieldwork. Why did I know you would say that? Because you're learning about humans. We don't do anything halfway. This is going to be interesting. That's one word for it. Down in the biodome, in a monitoring station that few students knew about, researchers were reviewing footage from Doyen's examination for the 1,000th time. They had learned something crucial about apex predators. When faced with something that did not behave like prey, that did not show fear in the expected way, even the most dangerous creatures became uncertain. Humans had spent millions of years learning to survive alongside Earth's megafauna. They had developed strategies, instincts, and capabilities that other species had never needed. They looked weak, but they could outlast almost anything. They seemed vulnerable, but they were actually one of the galaxy's most effective predators. And now the galaxy knew it. In a government facility on Earth, officials were reviewing applications from dozens of worlds requesting human consultants for dangerous fauna management. Requests for Earth Rangers to help with conservation efforts, invitations for human trainers to teach persistence tactics to other species' militaries. Earth had been discovered only recently by galactic standards. Humans had been seen as interesting but not particularly impressive. Soft, weak, lacking in natural weapons or defenses. One student with basic equipment and a stubborn refusal to give up had changed that perception forever. Across the galaxy, in classrooms and military academies, in research stations and exploration vessels, a new understanding was spreading. Humans were Deathworlders in the truest sense. Not because they were violent or cruel, but because they had learned to survive on a planet that constantly tried to kill them. And they had not just survived, but thrived. They had tamed their world not through domination, but through intelligence, adaptation, and sheer determination. And now they were bringing those lessons to the stars. Back in his quarters, Doyen opened his notebook and began sketching plans for next semester. If they were going to study Category 6 predators, he would need to research their behavioral patterns, understand their environmental needs, and develop appropriate observation strategies. Because that's what humans did. They saw challenges and figured out solutions. They encountered danger and learned to manage it. They faced the impossible and made it possible. It was, as his grandmother would say, just the family way. Somewhere in a volcanic jungle enclosure, the Vorask rested peacefully, unaware that its encounter with a human student had changed galactic history. It was just a predator being a predator, doing what millions of years of evolution had designed it to do. But it had met something unexpected that day, something that did not fit the normal patterns, something that had earned its respect through endurance and intelligence rather than strength or fear. It had met humanity, and neither the Vorask nor the galaxy would ever be quite the same.